Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving deep into a story that's making headlines around the world. We're talking about the presidential pardon of Marcus Garvey
That's right.
and the impact it's having not just in the U.S., but globally.
Yeah.
And to get a real feel for this, we're looking at some incredible reactions captured by Television Jamaica, straight from Jamaica. It's really powerful stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about a presidential pardon, and that alone is pretty rare, but this one is even more so because it's posthumous.
Right.
We're looking at a pardon for someone who's no longer alive. It's really quite unique.
Especially, thinking about Marcus Garvey, he's such a complex figure in history.
Yeah, definitely a controversial figure, and that makes this pardon even more significant, wouldn't you say?
Totally. So I think it's worth taking a step back for a second, for anyone who might not know all the details. Who was Marcus Garvey? What makes his conviction all those years ago such a big deal even today?
Well, Garvey was an incredibly powerful advocate for Black empowerment and Pan-Africanism. He was born in Jamaica and rose to prominence in the early 20th century, founding the Universal Negro Improvement Association, or the UNIA.
Right, the UNIA.
Yes, and this movement, it really resonated with so many people, hundreds of thousands of people of African descent across the globe. They saw in Garvey a leader who truly understood their struggles.
He was captivating. Like,
Yeah.
our source really highlights what an amazing orator he was. Just a powerful, powerful presence.
Oh, absolutely. But, and this is where the controversy comes in, he was eventually convicted of mail fraud.
Mail fraud, huh?
Yeah.
That doesn't really sound like, the crime of the century.
No, no, it doesn't. And that's what's so interesting about this whole story.
Yeah.
See, this conviction was related to his involvement with the Black Star Line, his shipping company. But a lot of people, back then and even now, believe there's more to it.
Right. Our source mentions that. There's a sense that maybe it wasn't just about the mail fraud, that there were other factors at play.
Exactly. We have to remember the context. We're talking about the 1920s. Racial prejudice was rampant. Discrimination was widespread. And here's Garvey with his message of Black empowerment, of self-reliance.
A direct challenge to the status quo.
Exactly. So he made some powerful enemies. And many believe, and some evidence even suggests, that his conviction was a way to silence him, to dismantle his movement.
It's just incredible to think about, how something from so long ago can still have such a powerful impact today.
It really is. And that's what makes President Biden's decision to pardon Garvey so significant.
Huge.
It's not just about overturning a legal decision. It's a symbolic act. It's an acknowledgement that something went very wrong.
And not just, a personal wrong to Garvey, but a wrong against an entire community, a whole movement.
Precisely. It says that, yes, maybe there were technical legal grounds for the conviction, but the underlying motivations were tainted by racial bias and political maneuvering.
And the reactions from Jamaica, wow. You can just feel how much this means to people. Prime Minister Holness, he called it a first step towards full exoneration.
And Mark Golding, the opposition leader, called it correcting a grave historical miscarriage of justice.
Powerful words.
They are. And what's really interesting is how this pardon has sparked a global conversation.
It's like Garvey's story is suddenly back in the spotlight, even though he's been gone for almost a century.
It is. And this brings up a really important point. There's a distinction between a pardon and exoneration.
Right. It's not the same thing.
No, not quite. A pardon acknowledges guilt but offers forgiveness.
Okay,
Exoneration, though, is a declaration of innocence.
I see.
It's saying that the person was wrongly convicted in the first place. And when we're talking about someone who's no longer alive,
It gets even more complicated.
absolutely. It's a much more complex process requiring a lot of digging into historical records, legal documents.
Trying to prove innocence
Yeah.
beyond a reasonable doubt, even though the person isn't here to defend themselves.
Exactly. But there are people pushing for just that, for Garvey's full exoneration.
Yeah, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, who's Jamaican-American, is really leading that charge.
That's right.
She's even calling for Congress to get involved, to make it happen. It makes you wonder, what would that look like, What would it mean for Garvey's legacy?
It would be a powerful statement. Imagine officially recognizing Garvey as a wrongly convicted individual.
Mm-hmm.
It would really solidify his status as a victim of injustice. And I think it could lead to a whole reassessment of his place in history.
Like rewriting the textbooks, in a sense.
In a way, yes. It could influence how his ideas are taught, how his story is understood, even how his movement is viewed.
It's fascinating how, even after all these years, Garvey's message still resonates so strongly. His ideas about Black empowerment, self-reliance, Pan-Africanism, they all feel incredibly relevant to what we're seeing in the world today.
Oh, without a doubt. You can see Garvey's influence in so many movements for racial justice and equality in the U.S. and globally.
It's like his ideas planted seeds that are still growing, still bearing fruit.
That's a great way to put it. His emphasis on self-reliance, on building economic power within Black communities, it's inspired countless initiatives.
Hmm.
And his vision of Pan-Africanism, this idea of unity among people of African descent worldwide,
Yeah.
well, that continues to fuel activism and solidarity across continents.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How history isn't just something in the past, tucked away in some dusty book.
It's alive, isn't it?
It's alive.
Yeah.
And it's shaping our present, influencing our future. That's what's so powerful about this whole deep dive, I think.
I agree.
We've explored Marcus Garvey's life, his legacy, this controversial conviction that's followed him all these years.
And now this pardon, which raises a really important question for all of us. What does it mean to grapple with historical injustice?
Hmm.
How do you reconcile with the wrongs of the past?
And maybe even more importantly, how does a story like Garvey's, with all its struggles and triumphs, how does that inspire you to think differently about your own role in creating a more just world?
A world where, hopefully, injustices like this are less likely to happen in the first place.
Something to think about, that's for sure. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.
Bye for now.
Bye.